Jin Ha-kyung is one of the Korean Meteorological Administration's top employees, known for her professionalism and attention to detail. Her life seems clearly structured, but a sudden and painful breakup with her fiancé, Ki-jun, changes everything. The breakup is a huge blow to Ha-kyung, who thought her relationship with Ki-jun was stable and solid. But the truth is different. The betrayal destroys their future, leaving Ha-kyung devastated and vulnerable. Ha-kyung, who has always been reserved and serious about her work, decides not to pursue romantic relationships, especially at work. Her main goal is to focus on her career, avoiding any emotional attachments. The fact that Ki-jun works in the same building as her adds to the difficulty. They have to cross paths, and each interaction adds to her inner pain. At the same time, a new employee, Lee Shi-woo, who is young, energetic, and completely different from the rest of the department. His enthusiasm for the weather, his sincere dedication to his work, and his carefree nature are in stark contrast to Ha-kyung's reserved and structured world. Si-woo, with his unconventional approach to his work, immediately catches Ha-kyung's eye, though at first it annoys Ha-kyung rather than endears him to him. Si-woo stands out not only for his professional skills but also for his optimistic attitude toward life. Ha-kyung notices that he's able to predict the weather using unconventional methods that turn out to be quite accurate, however. This earns her respect, though she tries not to show it. At some point, Ha-kyung feels attracted not only to Si-woo's professional competence, but also to his energy, the ease with which he views life, and his ability to find joy in even the most difficult situations. But at the same time, she realizes that she is still haunted by the pain of Ki-jun's betrayal. Han Ki-jun, despite the breakup, remains a part of her life as they work at the same place. Their mutual co-workers continue to discuss their relationship, which adds even more stress to Ha-kyung. She tries to focus on her work, ignoring any gossip, but the past still reminds her of herself. It's becoming more unbearable by the day, and her desire to stay away from romantic entanglements only grows stronger. Si-woo, unaware of Ha-kyung's inner turmoil, continues to charm her with his sincerity and passion for weather forecasts. He's not afraid to express his thoughts and isn't shy about sharing his perspective, even if his approach differs from the conventional wisdom. One such moment is when his forecast turns out to be unexpectedly accurate, despite the fact that he used unusual methods to analyze the data. This startles Ha-kyung, and she begins to realize that her initial perception of Si-woo was wrong. A working relationship develops between the two, which gradually grows into something more. Ha-kyung tries to maintain a professional distance, but she is increasingly attracted to the ease with which Si-woo embraces life. His openness and optimism contrast sharply with her restraint and constant preoccupation with professional and personal problems. Meanwhile, Han Ki-jun, the man she broke up with, begins to interact with her at work, which causes her to have mixed feelings. These encounters remind her of past pain, but also make her reflect on how far she has strayed from what once seemed like the perfect relationship. In these moments, Ha-kyung realizes that her attempts to avoid any emotional ties may not bring her the inner peace she longs for. The situation becomes more complicated when Ha-kyung begins to realize that Si-woo is not just a colleague, but someone who can become something more to her. She senses a budding sympathy, though she tries her best to suppress it, thinking that her heart isn't ready for a new relationship. Si-woo continues to say that work and personal relationships shouldn't mix, but Si-woo continues to show that life doesn't always follow strict rules. Ha-kyung gradually finds herself faced with the choice of continuing to shut herself off from the world and her feelings, or allowing herself to open up to something new. This internal conflict intensifies every day, especially when Si-woo suddenly begins to show her more and more attention. Ha-kyung realizes that her life will never be the same again, and whatever she chooses, her future depends not only on her professional decisions, but also on whether she is willing to let someone back into her heart. Jin Ha-kyung continues to recover from her painful breakup with Han Ki-jun. Her decision not to pursue a romantic relationship at work remains unchanged, but the daily challenges and emotional strains still weigh on her. Working at a weather agency requires maximum concentration, but life, like the weather, is full of surprises. A chance encounter with Si-woo begins to add a touch of unpredictability to her strictly planned world. Si-woo, a young, energetic employee, despite his relaxed and even slightly carefree nature, attracts Ha-kyung's attention. His unusual approach to weather forecasting and passion for his work gradually impresses her. At first, she tries to ignore his ease and enthusiasm in an effort to keep her working distance. But Si-woo is not as simple as he seems at first glance. Beneath his bright, sincere personality lies a deep understanding of nature and a thorough work ethic. Si-woo immediately takes an interest in Ha-kyung. He appreciates her professionalism and strict approach to her work, and despite her coldness, he's not afraid to communicate with her. On the surface, he seems like he can't be embarrassed by anything, but he actually realizes that Ha-kyung is trying to keep her distance after her breakup with Ki-jun. He respects her boundaries, but he can't help but admire her dedication and strength of character. Ha-kyung, as she continues to work side by side with Si-woo, begins to notice how he interacts with coworkers and others. She is attracted to his ability to see the positives even in difficult situations, which contrasts with her own approach to life. While she always strives for perfect order and control, Si-woo takes things more lightly and flexibly. This makes her wonder maybe her excessive restraint prevents her from seeing the diversity of life. In one of the discussions of a work project, Si-woo proposes a risky solution to predict a complex weather situation. His approach seems unconventional, and most of his colleagues are skeptical of his proposal. Ha-kyung is also doubtful, although she internally recognizes that Si-woo has a special flair that allows him to propose such ideas. After much discussion, she decides to give him a chance. This moment becomes an important step in their working relationship. Ha-kyung begins to trust Si-woo not only as a colleague, but also as someone who can see things from a different perspective. An involuntary attraction gradually develops between them. Ha-kyung is still trying to remain professional and cold-blooded, but Si-woo, with his lightness and humor, begins to win her affection more and begins to win her. She notices that his presence brings her some inner relief, as if to relieve the weight of constant tension. Even so, she continues to resist these new feelings, trying to convince herself that she is not ready for a new relationship, especially with a coworker. Si-woo takes his time. He sees that Ha-kyung is struggling with herself, and he doesn't push her. He continues to work beside her, hoping that in time she herself will realize that their interaction is becoming more than just a professional relationship. Meanwhile, Han Ki-jun, Ha-kyung's ex-fiancé, is still present in her life, which only complicates things. He tries to maintain a neutral, professional relationship with her, but every time they meet at work, it triggers Ha-kyung's unpleasant memories of betrayal. This shadow of the past weighs on her, and she can't fully let go of the feelings she had for Ki-jun, which reinforces her doubts about her possible future with Si-woo. Her colleagues around her begin to notice that something is changing between Ha-kyung and Si-woo. Their work together becomes more intimate, and their interactions begin to attract attention. But for now, it remains just a hint of a possible relationship, and no one can say for sure what's going on between them. Ha-kyung, faced with new feelings and continued pressure from her past, realizes that her strict plan to stay away from romantic relationships is beginning to crumble. The internal conflict between her rational decisions and her budding emotions intensifies. She knows that allowing herself to be close to Si-woo could have unpredictable consequences, both on a personal level and professionally. Jin Ha-kyung continues to struggle with her inner emotions and reflects on how her life has changed since meeting Lee Shi-woo. Her confidence that professional and personal relationships should not overlap begins to waver. Their interactions at work become more complex by the day, and she begins to realize that Si-woo influences her more than she is willing to admit. Their work together on a weather forecasting project that turns out to be unexpectedly challenging causes Ha-kyung to reevaluate her opinion of Si-woo as a professional and as a person. Si-woo continues to demonstrate his unusual but successful approach to his work. Although his methods seem unconventional, his predictions are often accurate, and this earns Ha-kyung not only professional respect but also growing sympathy. Their interactions at work become closer, and Ha-kyung notices that he begins to see Si-woo as someone he can rely on. At the same time, Si-woo is not indifferent to her feelings. He intuitively senses Ha-kyung's emotional confusion and tries not to pressure her. His patience and support become an important support for Ha-kyung, who still can't quite let go of her old wounds. He gradually realizes that for her it's not just romantic doubts but a deep inner struggle related to past failures. Meanwhile, tensions at work escalate. The meteorology department begins to have problems with forecasts, causing pressure on all employees, including Ha-kyung. Sudden changes in weather patterns jeopardize the success of ongoing projects, and the responsibility of solving these problems falls on her shoulders. Si-woo offers his unconventional solutions, and Ha-kyung, despite her habit of caution, decides to trust his intuition. This becomes a turning point in their interaction as they begin to work as true partners, joining forces to achieve a common goal. Han Ki-jun, even though their relationship with Ha-kyung has ended, continues to influence her life. He still works in the same office, and their frequent overlap at work creates additional tension. Ha-kyung tries to ignore him, but the constant reminders of the past keep her from moving forward. Every time she sees him or hears his name, she is overwhelmed by memories of betrayal and pain. However, her interaction with Si-woo helps her step back from these emotions a bit, giving her a chance to focus on the present. Ha-kyung begins to notice that her sympathy for Si-woo is growing into something deeper, but she's still not sure if she's ready to admit it to herself. She vacillates between wanting to keep all her feelings to herself and fearing the possibility of feeling hurt again. Si-woo, for his part, sees her uncertainty and continues to support her from a distance, giving her time to sort out her feelings. He doesn't rush her, realizing that any moves too quickly could push her away. Meanwhile, coworkers begin to notice their increasingly close working relationship. Gossip and speculation that there's something going on between Ha-kyung and Si-woo gradually begins to spread around the office. This causes additional tension, and Ha-kyung becomes even more withdrawn, trying to ignore the conversations around her. She's afraid that any display of feelings for Si-woo might be criticized or judged by her colleagues. This sense of fear of others' opinions prevents her from fully opening up her emotions and accepting her budding feelings. Si-woo, despite this, stays close to her. He realizes that their bond is more than just working interactions, and that there is more to it than that. His patience and support help Ha-kyung feel safe, but she still struggles with inner fears and doubts. She's not sure if she's ready to enter into a new relationship, especially with a coworker, knowing how much pain it has brought her in the past. Against this backdrop, their weather forecasting project runs into unexpected problems. Ha-kyung and Si-woo are forced to work extra hard, which brings them even closer together. They spend a lot of time together, solving professional problems, and their communication becomes more and more open and trusting. Ha-kyung realizes that Si-woo has become important to her, despite her attempts to keep her distance. Jin Ha-kyung becomes increasingly attached to Lee Shi-woo. Their interactions at work become not just effective, but filled with subtle emotional undertones. Despite her best efforts to remain professional and keep her distance, emotions begin to take over. Ha-kyung realizes that something more is growing between them, but still resists, trying to remain cool and focused on work. Nevertheless, Si-woo begins to pay more and more attention to her, not only as a colleague but also as a woman, which confuses her and attracts her at the same time. Si-woo, as an open and honest person, is not afraid to show his feelings, even if it is not always directly expressed in words. His actions increasingly show that he cares for Ha-kyung. He tries to help her not only at work, but also in personal moments. One such expression of caring is his support when Ha-kyung faces difficulties at work. The weather department continues to have challenging days, and another difficult weather forecast puts Ha-kyung in a stressful situation. Si-woo helps her cope by offering her unconventional but highly accurate forecasts. Ha-kyung, surprised by his intuitive skills and ability to accurately predict the weather, begins to look at him with a new respect. She no longer sees him as just a young and somewhat reckless coworker, but as someone she can rely on. This gives her mixed feelings. She fears that her professional and personal boundaries are beginning to blur. Meanwhile, Han Ki-jun continues to be a part of her life. Although they are no longer together, Ha-kyung often runs into him at work. Every time they meet, she finds it hard to control her emotions. The inner pain of the breakup hasn't completely disappeared, and every time she sees him with his new wife Chae Yoo-jin, she is hurt. She still can't let go of the past, and her fear of a new relationship stems from this very failure. Ha-kyung is afraid of experiencing that kind of betrayal again. Si-woo begins to notice that Ha-kyung is becoming more and more distant, especially when it comes to personal matters. Even though they interact on a high level at work, outside the office, Ha-kyung tries to shut down to prevent something more serious from developing. Her inner conflict becomes more and more apparent, and she tries to shut Si-woo out to avoid further emotional distress. However, Si-woo has no intention of giving up. He sees Ha-kyung as someone who has been through a lot of emotional pain, and he realizes that she needs time to deal with these experiences. He doesn't rush her, but continues to show her that she can count on him. This leads to a trust between them that becomes the foundation for their future relationship. Against the backdrop of these personal experiences, work tasks do not get any easier. The department continues to have difficulties with weather forecasts, and Ha-kyung is forced to make important decisions. One of these decisions turns out to be risky, and the team begins to question her judgment. Si-woo once again supports her by offering her perspective on the situation. Ha-kyung, though doubtful, decides to trust his judgment, and this leads to a successful outcome. This moment becomes a turning point for Ha-kyung. She begins to realize that Si-woo is not only a professional, but also someone she can rely on in times of need. Her trust in him grows, and it brings them even closer together. Despite her attempts to avoid emotional attachment, she begins to realize that she can no longer ignore her feelings for Si-woo. Si-woo, for his part, also feels their bond growing stronger. He sees Ha-kyung as someone who needs support and care, and is willing to be someone she can lean on. But he realizes that in order for their relationship to move forward, Ha-kyung needs to accept his feelings and let go of his fears about the past. Ha-kyung realizes that her feelings for Si-woo are deepening, despite her constant attempts to stay away from him. As always, he stays by her side, showing patience and support, and this gradually breaks down the walls Ha-kyung has built around herself since her breakup with Ki-jun. However, the past continues to haunt her, especially when Ki-jun and his wife Chae Yoo-jin interfere in her life again. Working at the weather service continues to be Ha-kyung's top priority. The pressure increases with new forecasts that require accuracy and speed, and the entire team is forced to work to the limit. Ha-kyung is trying to keep the situation under control, but internal doubts and emotional fatigue are getting in the way. In the midst of all of this, Si-woo becomes her rock, but she's still not ready to admit it, even to herself. Meanwhile, Han Ki-jun doesn't miss an opportunity to interfere in her life. Working in the same building and socializing with the same coworkers, he keeps pressuring her to face the pain of her past. Chae Yoo-jin, his new wife, also becomes part of this complex network. Ha-kyung feels trapped as every step reminds her of what she has experienced, and this prevents her from moving forward. Si-woo sees that something is bothering Ha-kyung but takes his time to ask unnecessary questions. He realizes that she needs space and time to sort out her feelings. One day, however, he decides not to just watch from the sidelines but to offer her his help. This unexpected show of concern takes their relationship to a new level. Ha-kyung feels that she can rely on him, and for the first time in a long time, she allows herself to be vulnerable. This rapprochement becomes an important moment for both of them. Ha-kyung realizes that Si-woo really cares for her, and this causes her to have mixed emotions. On the one hand, she's afraid that if she opens up to him, things will go wrong with Ki-jun again. On the other hand, Si-woo is clearly different from her ex-fiancé, sincere, kind-hearted, and always supports her without asking for anything in return. Meanwhile, at work, their relationship is also starting to attract attention. Colleagues increasingly notice their interactions and begin to discuss a possible romance. Ha-kyung becomes even more withdrawn, fearing that a personal relationship could damage her professional reputation. She tries to hide her feelings and keep her distance, but it becomes more and more difficult as Si-woo continues to show her care and attention. One day, when the situation at work reaches a critical point, Si-woo decides to have a frank conversation with Ha-kyung. He tells her how he feels about her, that he hasn't seen her as a coworker in a long time. This conversation becomes a serious challenge for Ha-kyung. She's afraid that if she gives her relationship with Si-woo a chance, she'll be vulnerable again. However, Si-woo assures her that he doesn't want to rush things and is willing to support her, even if she's not ready to take more serious steps. After talking to Si-woo, Ha-kyung is deep in thought about what she should do next. He openly confesses his feelings, which causes her to have mixed emotions. Although she feels that she is beginning to trust him more and more, her fears of possibly repeating past mistakes remain strong. She constantly ponders whether she is willing to risk her feelings and accept the possibility of a new relationship. Meanwhile, at work, the situation remains tense. The weather service continues to have difficulties with weather forecasts, which requires all employees to do their best. Ha-kyung tries not to show her inner turmoil and concentrates fully on her work. However, her interactions with Si-woo become even more obvious to her coworkers, and gossip about something going on between them begins to spread around the office. This begins to worry Ha-kyung. She fears that their possible relationship could damage her professional reputation. Her commitment to professionalism has always come first, and the thought of being judged for having an affair with a coworker is unsettling to her. She tries to avoid Si-woo at work, although his attention and care continue to attract her. Si-woo sees her hesitation and tries not to pressure her, but his affection for her is becoming more and more obvious. Ha-kyung spends more and more time alone, trying to sort out her feelings. Her emotional defenses that she had built up after her breakup with Ki-jun begin to crumble under the pressure of her new emotions. She realizes that Si-woo is nothing like her former fiancé, but her fear of being betrayed again prevents her from taking a step towards a new relationship. Meanwhile, Han Ki-jun and his wife Chae Yoo-jin continue to complicate her life. Not only do they work in the same office, but they keep showing up at places where Ha-kyung goes. This reminds her of the past and increases her doubts about the future. Every time she sees Ki-jun, memories of betrayal overwhelm her, and it makes her push Si-woo away again and again, even though her heart wants another. But Si-woo doesn't give up. He continues to support Ha-kyung despite her coldness and attempts to push him away. His sincerity and kindness becomes an important factor for her, which helps her start to gradually open up. Although she's still not ready to fully admit her feelings, she begins to appreciate his concern and realizes that he has more to offer her than just a fleeting relationship. Amidst these personal torments, professional tasks continue to demand her full concentration. Si-woo again offers an out-of-the-box solution to a complex weather forecast, and Ha-kyung, despite her doubts, decides to trust him. Their work together is a success, and it strengthens their professional relationship. Now, however, Ha-kyung can't ignore that there's something more between them. She begins to realize that her feelings for Si-woo are changing. The internal barriers she has built around her slowly beginning to crumble. Her resistance based on her fear of repeating past mistakes is weakening. She realizes that Si-woo has become an important part of her life, and it no longer makes sense to ignore it. After weeks of internal struggle, Ha-kyung realizes that she can no longer deny her feelings for Si-woo. He has become an important part of her life, and despite her fears and doubts, she feels drawn to him. However, fear of the possible consequences, both at work and in her personal life, continues to hold her back. Realizing that her old principles could be a barrier to happiness, Ha-kyung is still trying to balance her emotions with her work commitments. Si-woo waits patiently as before for Ha-kyung to come to a decision on her own. He doesn't rush her, though his feelings are becoming more and more obvious. His concern and support don't go unnoticed, and it's starting to break down the walls Ha-kyung has built around herself. But her anxiety about how their possible relationship might affect her reputation and professional life remains strong. She fears that the personal connection could affect her career, and these thoughts continue to stall her progress in her relationship with Si-woo. Meanwhile, their co-workers begin to notice more and more that something is going on between Ha-kyung and Si-woo. The office gossip is spreading more and more, and it's starting to worry Ha-kyung. She doesn't want to be the subject of discussion, especially since she takes her work seriously and wants to maintain her professionalism. These conversations make her even more determined to hide her feelings and keep her relationship with Si-woo from developing. But it's becoming increasingly obvious that it's becoming almost impossible to hide it. Work responsibilities continue to weigh on Ha-kyung. Once again, her team has trouble forecasting the weather, and the responsibility for accurate predictions falls on her shoulders once again. Si-woo, as always, offers his unconventional solutions that lead to positive results, and Ha-kyung realizes that she can no longer ignore his contribution to their work together. They begin to work more cohesively as true partners, and this strengthens their mutual understanding and trust. However, Ha-kyung's personal life remains complicated. Constant encounters with Ki-jun and Chae-yu-jin add tension to her daily life. Every time she sees Ki-jun, she is overcome with mixed feelings, ranging from anger and resentment to pity and disappointment. She realizes that she still hasn't been able to finally let go of that past. But her new feelings for Si-woo gradually help her to free herself from Ki-jun's shadow, and she begins to realize that she has a chance for a new chapter in her life. One of the turning points for Ha-kyung is when Si-woo, despite her attempts to keep her distance, shows himself to be a loyal and trustworthy man in a time of need. He supports her not only at work, but also emotionally, showing that he's willing to be there for her no matter what the circumstances. This unexpected display of his devotion makes her think that perhaps she deserves the happiness that comes with a new relationship. Against this backdrop, Ha-kyung begins to realize more and more that her fears about the possible consequences of a relationship with Si-woo shouldn't get in her way. She begins to realize that personal happiness is more than just professional achievement, and that perhaps she should take the risk to allow herself to be happy. Ha-kyung, after much deliberation, finally decides to have an honest talk with Si-woo. Her heart is drawn to him, despite all the doubts and fears she's been carrying inside. Their relationship can no longer remain in the shadows, and she realizes that they need to have a frank discussion about the future. This step is not easy for her, as her professional principles and fear of repercussions have prevented her from admitting her feelings. Ha-kyung and Si-woo find time to meet privately, and she decides to talk about what they have in common. She shares her fears about how their relationship might affect her work and how her personal experiences from the past still continue to affect her perception of her new relationship. Si-woo, as always, remains patient and attentive. He listens to her, showing that he's willing to accept whatever decision she makes, even if it means they'll remain just co-workers. During their conversation, Ha-kyung realizes that her fears about her past and the opinions of others shouldn't determine her future. She sees that Si-woo is willing to be there for her, no matter the circumstances. This realization brings her relief, and she decides to give their relationship a chance. This becomes a big step forward for her, as she finally lets go of her fears and allows herself to follow her feelings. Meanwhile, at work, their relationship gradually becomes obvious to their coworkers. The gossip and talk in the office doesn't stop, and this causes Ha-kyung some anxiety. She's still afraid that her reputation might suffer because she started dating a coworker. However, now she no longer feels the acute fear she used to. Her confidence in Si-woo and their mutual feelings helps her overcome these doubts. Si-woo continues to show that he is willing to support Ha-kyung, both personally and professionally. His patient and caring attitude gives her confidence that she has made the right decision. They begin to spend more and more time together, not only at work but also outside of work. Their relationship becomes more open, but they also try to keep their distance in the workplace so as not to cause unnecessary conversations. Han Ki-jun and Chae-yu-jin still remain in her life, which creates additional complications. Ki-jun notices that Ha-kyung and Si-woo have grown closer, and this makes him jealous and displeased. Even though he's already married to Yu-jin, he still feels that Ha-kyung is leaving his life for good, and this hurts him. Chae-yu-jin, in turn, begins to realize that her husband still hasn't fully let go of his past with Ha-kyung, and this makes her feel insecure and annoyed. These new circumstances add to the tension in the office. Si-woo, though he tries to ignore Ki-jun, is starting to feel pressured because of their previous relationship. But he does his best not to let these outside factors affect his relationship with Ha-kyung. They both realize that they will face difficulties, but they are now willing to work to overcome them. The climax comes the evening Ha-kyung and Si-woo decide to spend time away from the office. This becomes their first step to building a deeper connection outside of work. They talk about everything: their fears, past mistakes, and hopes for the future. This moment becomes an important step for both of them toward a more serious and sincere relationship. Ha-kyung begins to realize that Si-woo is not only her colleague but also someone who can be her support in any circumstance. She is no longer afraid to show her feelings and begins to take them seriously. Si-woo, on the other hand, is happy to finally have a chance to be with Ha-kyung not only as a colleague but also as a man who loves her. Ha-kyung and Si-woo begin to adjust to their new relationship status, but the work environment at the Korean Meteorological Administration remains tense. Although they try to keep their personal and professional separate, their co-workers continue to discuss their rapprochement. The gossip in the office is becoming more and more prominent, and this is causing Ha-kyung a certain amount of concern, as she has always strived to maintain professionalism. Amidst this tension, their work together continues. New tasks related to weather forecasts require special attention. Circumstances become even more complicated when Si-woo is assigned a complex forecast on which the success of a major project depends. Ha-kyung tries to support him, even though she realizes that their relationship is now under the scrutiny of colleagues and management. This causes her internal conflict, as she fears that if something goes wrong on a professional level, their relationship will also be jeopardized. At the same time, Han Ki-jung continues to be an irritating factor. He doesn't hide his displeasure that Ha-kyung and Si-woo have grown closer, and begins to show his jealousy more and more explicitly. His marriage to Chae Yoo-jin also faces problems, as Yoo-jin increasingly senses his emotional distance and realizes that Ki-jun hasn't fully let go of his feelings for Ha-kyung. This creates additional tension for both Ha-kyung and Si-woo. Ha-kyung begins to feel pressure not only at work but also from Ki-jun. He starts asking her uncomfortable questions regarding her relationship with Si-woo, and this makes her irritated. She realizes that Ki-jun is still trying to control her life, even though they are no longer together. Si-woo, for his part, tries not to get involved in the conflict, but he finds it increasingly difficult to ignore Ki-jun's behavior. Amidst these personal problems, work at the weather agency becomes more and more stressful. The new forecast that Si-woo has to make turns out to be crucial for the whole team. Ha-kyung, despite his misgivings, decides to fully support Si-woo in this challenging project. They work side by side and their professional interaction becomes even more harmonious. This brings them closer together again, and Ha-kyung begins to feel that their relationship is becoming stronger. However, on one busy work day, there is an unexpected disruption. The weather forecast the team has been working on turns out not to be as accurate as planned, and this causes serious repercussions. The whole team is put under pressure, especially Ha-kyung and Si-woo, who were in charge of the project. This becomes a serious challenge for them both professionally and personally. Ha-kyung begins to worry that their professional setbacks might affect their relationship. She fears that their rap rockman has negatively affected their work, and this makes her feel guilty. Si-woo, despite the stress, continues to support Ha-kyung, assuring her that they can handle any difficulties if they work together. This moment becomes a test for them to see how strong their feelings are and how much they are willing to fight for their future. After an unfortunate weather forecast causes serious repercussions for the entire team, Ha-kyung and Si-woo face increasing pressure at work. Both feel a deep sense of responsibility for what happened, especially Ha-kyung, who worries that their personal relationship may have affected their professional performance. Internal tensions continue to rise, and she fears that their rap recoupment could affect not only their work but also their reputation within the team. Amidst these worries, Ha-kyung begins to pull away from Si-woo. Although she has admitted her feelings, her professional problems and inner doubts make her question whether to continue the relationship. She feels that work should be the priority right now, and she finds it difficult to reconcile personal happiness with professional responsibility. However, her attempts to distance herself from Si-woo make him uneasy. Si-woo, seeing her doubts, tries to remain patient. He realizes that it is important for Ha-kyung to be sure that their relationship is not detrimental to her career. He continues to support her, showing that he's willing to fight for their love despite the difficulties they face. It's important to Si-woo that Ha-kyung feels confident and not afraid that a personal relationship could ruin her professional life. Meanwhile, colleagues continue to discuss the failed prognosis and try to figure out what the problem was. The pressure from management intensifies, and this causes the whole team to tense up. Ha-kyung finds herself at the center of these discussions, and she has to make difficult decisions in order to rectify the situation. She worries that their personal lives could be a cause for criticism, and this causes her to pull away from Si-woo even more. On the personal front, Si-woo faces his own difficulties. He begins to realize that his feelings for Ha-kyung are much deeper than he intended and that her detachment is causing him inner pain. He realizes that this is a difficult time for her, but it's hard for him to see her trying to keep their relationship aside for the sake of work. Si-woo can't stay aloof and decides to have a frank talk with her. They meet for a frank conversation during which Si-woo expresses his feelings. He tells Ha-kyung that he doesn't want their relationship to fall victim to professional problems, and that he's willing to do anything to support her. Ha-kyung, despite her fears, senses his sincerity and devotion. She realizes that her attempts to protect them from gossip and pressure don't bring relief, and that perhaps the only way to handle the situation is to be honest and open. This conversation becomes an important moment in their relationship. Ha-kyung realizes that Si-woo isn't going to give up on her, and that their bond can truly endure any hardship. They decide to confront work problems together without letting them ruin what they've built in their personal lives. After Ha-kyung and Si-woo decide not to back down in the face of adversity and continue to struggle through personal and professional challenges together, their relationship begins to strengthen. Both are now confident that they are willing to support each other in any circumstance, and this realization helps them cope with the pressures at work and the opinions of others. However, challenges continue to haunt them, forcing each of them to face new trials in both their professional and personal lives. At work, the team continues to rebuild trust after an unfortunate weather forecast, and this causes many tense moments. Ha-kyung and Si-woo are forced to work even closer together to right the wrongs and show that they can handle the toughest challenges. But despite their best efforts, their colleagues are still suspicious of their relationship, believing that their personal connection interferes with their professionalism. The management of the meteorological administration begins to show more attention to their work, watching their every move. This increases the pressure on Ha-kyung, who has always prided herself on her ability to remain objective and focused on her work. Now, however, she feels like she's being looked at under a microscope, and she's afraid that any wrong action will be an excuse to criticize her relationship with Si-woo. Si-woo is beginning to feel stressed as well. Although he continues to support Ha-kyung, his own job is becoming increasingly difficult. The pressure on him increases, and he realizes that his position on the team also depends on the success of their joint projects. This internal conflict creates some tension in their relationship as they each experience their own fears and doubts. Meanwhile, Han Kai-jun and Chae Yoo-jin continue to be a part of their lives. Kai-jun, despite already being married, still can't completely let go of his feelings for Ha-kyung and continues to meddle in her affairs. He begins to question Ha-kyung's professionalism in front of his coworkers, fueling gossip and creating more tension in the office. This makes Ha-kyung even more irritated as she's already tired of the constant pressure and judgment. Si-woo notices that Ki-jun's behavior is negatively affecting Ha-kyung and decides to put things right. He meets with Ki-jun for a frank conversation, trying to make it clear that his meddling and constant gossip are only making things worse. Si-woo asks him to leave Ha-kyung alone and not interfere with her life. This conversation is a big step for Si-woo, as he realizes that he's now ready not just to support Ha-kyung, but to protect her from all outside problems. Ha-kyung feels mixed emotions upon hearing about this conversation. On the one hand, she's grateful to Si-woo for his support, but on the other hand, she realizes that her past with Ki-jun isn't completely over. She realizes that her attempts to stay away from Si-woo have only led to more internal tension. She now realizes that if she wants to build a future with Si-woo, she'll have to finally close the doors to her past. After this incident, Ha-kyung decides to talk to Ki-jun. She wants to put a stop to their relationship and let him know that their past shouldn't affect her life anymore. This conversation becomes a release for her from old fears and pain. Ha-kyung tells Ki-jun that she no longer wants their past to overshadow her present and future with Si-woo. She lets him know that they are no longer bound by anything, and that her happiness is now tied to another man. After Ha-kyung finally cuts all ties with her past and puts an end to her relationship with Ki-jun, her inner world is slowly becoming more stable. She now feels that she can fully focus on the future she is building with Si-woo. Their relationship, despite all the trials they've been through, becomes stronger and more secure. Both characters realize that they have been through a lot and have earned the right to happiness, even if external circumstances continue to create difficulties. However, professional responsibilities and pressure at work do not lessen. New challenges arise in the meteorology department, and every step becomes critical for the team. Ha-kyung and Si-woo continue to work on important projects, and their ability to overcome difficulties together becomes more and more visible. Colleagues begin to recognize their professionalism, and while gossip about their relationship continues to circulate, it's no longer as tense as it once was. Nevertheless, not everything is smooth sailing. The agency's management continues to monitor how work processes are evolving, and new problems arise that require immediate intervention. Ha-kyung is faced with having to make several important decisions that could affect the success of their team. Her professional credentials are once again under scrutiny, and this creates new stress that could again affect her personal relationship with Si-woo. Si-woo, despite his natural optimism, is also feeling the pressure. He's worried that Ha-kyung will start to question their relationship again amid new challenges at work. Their interactions have become somewhat strained in recent days, as both are stressed over upcoming projects. However, Si-woo realizes that it's important to support Ha-kyung and does her best to show her that their relationship is stronger than any work problems. Meanwhile, Ki-jun and Chae Yoo-jin continue their own struggles in their marriage. Their relationship becomes increasingly complicated, and Chae Yoo-jin begins to realize that Ki-jun never let go of his connection to Ha-kyung. This realization causes her to feel resentment and frustration, and their marriage begins to show cracks. Chae Yoo-jin decides to talk to Ha-kyung directly to put the matter to rest once and for all. This meeting comes as a surprise to Ha-kyung. Chae Yoo-jin speaks openly about his feelings, sharing his worries about how Ki-jun is still attached to the past. Ha-kyung, realizing that she has nothing more to hide, confidently states that her future is now tied to Si-woo, and that she no longer has any feelings for Ki-jun. This conversation allows them both to clear the air and realize that their paths are no longer crossing. In the midst of all this, Ha-kyung and Si-woo's relationship continues to evolve. They begin to discuss their future more seriously, wondering how to reconcile their personal and professional goals. Now that they have overcome so many challenges, they realize that their bond is strong and can withstand any hardship. After making an important decision to move forward together, Ha-kyung and Si-woo begin to grow more confident in their relationship. Their bond becomes more stable despite past worries and problems at work. Both characters are now determined to work on their relationship and support each other in every situation. However, there are new challenges ahead that will test them both personally and professionally. At work, Ha-kyung continues to face the rising expectations of management. Her professional reputation remains under scrutiny, especially after recent poor predictions. She is assigned to lead an even more complex weather forecasting project, and she feels responsible for the success of the entire department. This causes her a new round of stress, as she wants to prove that she can handle any challenges while keeping her personal life under control. Si-woo, for his part, continues to support Ha-kyung and tries to lighten her load. He realizes how important her job is to her and is willing to help her in any way he can. However, his own career isn't standing still either. He is being offered new opportunities, and it requires even more time and effort on his part. Both characters begin to face a lack of time for their personal lives, and this causes a bit of a disagreement. Ha-kyung, who is used to being independent and coping on her own, gradually begins to realize that she needs to learn to rely on and trust Si-woo. She notices that she sometimes focuses too much on work, forgetting how important it is to maintain a balance between her personal life and her career. Si-woo tries to show her that it is possible to be successful not only professionally but also in relationships. Meanwhile, amidst the growing pressure at work, Ha-kyung begins to notice changes in her colleagues' behavior. Although the gossip about her relationship with Si-woo has begun to die down, some of the employees are still skeptical that their personal lives don't affect their work. This creates additional tension, and Ha-kyung decides to speak openly with the team to set the record straight and show that their relationship doesn't affect her professionalism. This move strengthens her position as a leader and helps ease tensions within the team. However, new problems arise in their relationship with Si-woo. Both realize that despite their feelings for each other, work and external pressures continue to mount. Si-woo begins to have doubts about how their continued life together will affect their careers. He realizes that no matter how hard they try to separate work and personal, these areas will inevitably overlap. Both characters begin to wonder if they will be able to maintain their connection in the long term if the pressures from the outside world continue. The situation reaches a climax when one of the important predictions is again proven inaccurate, and this triggers a wave of criticism against them. Ha-kyung once again finds herself in the spotlight, and her professional reputation is once again threatened. She feels guilty that she may have made a mistake and begins to doubt her abilities. Si-woo, despite her own worries, tries to support her, reassuring her that one mistake should not be a reason to give up on their relationship or career. This crisis helps them realize that they need to learn to be even better at supporting each other in difficult moments. They decide that their love and relationship is worth fighting for, and make a joint decision to keep going despite all the difficulties. Both characters begin to better understand that relationships are not only joyful moments, but also a constant work on themselves and their feelings. After Ha-kyung and Si-woo face another wave of professional and personal challenges, they come to realize that their relationship has passed many tests and become even stronger. But a new challenge lies ahead, balancing their career ambitions with their desire to build a future together. At work, the pressure from management continues to mount. Ha-kyung is forced to make difficult decisions to rebuild trust after recent problems with weather forecasts. Her professional successes are once again key to the team, and she realizes that she needs to focus on her work to maintain her reputation and the support of her colleagues. This causes new turmoil within her, as the last time the job took a big toll on her personal relationships. Si-woo, in turn, is faced with new opportunities for professional growth, but they require time and concentration. He is offered to lead important projects which could significantly advance his career. However, he realizes that this could mean even more time away from Ha-kyung. Their relationship, though stronger, is still at a stage where support and attention are needed to prevent further disagreements. Ha-kyung, despite her career successes, begins to feel inner turmoil. She sees Si-woo becoming more and more immersed in her work, and fears that their relationship may be starting to drift apart. They have experienced this kind of situation many times where work has taken center stage and affected personal decisions. Now that they have ambitious professional goals, they both have to find a balance between their personal lives and their careers. Si-woo is also beginning to realize that his new responsibilities could be a serious obstacle to their relationship. He fears that if he is completely immersed in his work, he and Ha-kyung will have no time to build their relationship. This internal conflict intensifies when coworkers begin to bring up the issue of how their personal lives might affect work. This again sets off a wave of gossip in the office, and both characters begin to feel pressure from all sides. Meanwhile, the relationship between Ki-jun and Chae-yoo-jin continues to deteriorate. Yoo-jin feels that Ki-jun still hasn't let go of his past with Ha-kyung, and this creates a new round of conflict in their marriage. This becomes another factor that weighs on Ha-kyung, as she doesn't want to be involved in Ki-jun's problems. However, their intersections at work continue to occur, which adds to her stress. Amidst all of this, Ha-kyung and Si-woo decide that they need to have a serious discussion about their future plans. They realize that they face the daunting task of maintaining a balance between their personal and professional goals. This conversation becomes a turning point for them. Ha-kyung confesses that he is afraid of repeating the mistakes of the past, when work ruined personal relationships. Si-woo, in turn, says he doesn't want to lose her to her career, but also realizes that they each have their own ambitions that need attention. They decide that the future requires compromise. Both begin to make a plan on how to deal with the increasing demands at work, while remembering to support each other. Ha-kyung and Si-woo come to realize that the real strength of their relationship lies in being there for each other in difficult moments and supporting each other no matter what is going on around them. They decide to more seriously discuss their next steps as a couple, planning their future so that they can each realize their career goals without sacrificing their relationship. This decision becomes a key step toward happiness together, and Ha-kyung feels that she is no longer alone in making important decisions. After discussions about their future together, Ha-kyung and Si-woo begin to take concrete steps to strengthen their relationship. Both realize that balancing their personal lives and career goals will require compromise, planning, and understanding each other. Their decision to build a future based on mutual support begins to bear fruit, but it also opens them up to new challenges and tasks. At work, the atmosphere continues to be tense. Ha-kyung is faced with yet another challenging project that requires full commitment and maximum concentration. She realizes that her reputation as a professional in the weather service remains in the crosshairs of management, and every mistake could be critical to her future career. This time, however, she is no longer alone. Si-woo is there to help her cope, offering her professional opinion and supporting her emotionally. However, conversations continue in the office about how their personal relationship affects the workflow. The gossip intensifies when several projects run into problems, and some of their co-workers begin to blame their rapprochement. Even though Si-woo and Ha-kyung continue to demonstrate high professionalism, pressure from management and co-workers begins to mount. Ha-kyung realizes that he and Si-woo will have to prove that their relationship does not affect the quality of their work. Si-woo, who has always been calm and optimistic, begins to notice that this pressure is also affecting his productivity. He worries that Ha-kyung may be alienating himself from him again by trying to deal with problems at work on his own. This causes him inner turmoil, and he begins to think more about how to separate work and personal feelings to keep their relationship intact. Meanwhile, Ha-kyung faces another serious professional dilemma. She is offered an important promotion that could lead to significant changes in her work schedule and responsibilities. She realizes that this is a step forward in her career, but the move could also further complicate her personal life with Si-woo. By accepting this offer, she'll be forced to devote more time to work, which could affect their relationship. Ha-kyung is deep in thought about whether to accept this new position. She is faced with a choice between career advancement and the time she wants to devote to her relationship. This choice becomes a serious challenge for her, as her desire to be successful and independent has always been an important part of her life. Si-woo, upon learning of the proposal, realizes how important it is to her and expresses her support, even though it may change their dynamic. They have long conversations, discussing how they can maintain balance in their lives if Ha-kyung accepts the promotion. In these conversations, they open up to each other about their fears and hopes for the future. Ha-kyung confesses that she's afraid of facing a situation where work becomes more important than anything else again, and that she doesn't want to lose Si-woo over it. Si-woo, for his part, says that he's willing to support her in whatever decision she makes, but also reminds her that they need to build their future together and not let work ruin their bond. These discussions lead Ha-kyung to realize how important their relationship with Si-woo is to her. She now sees that career success and personal life can coexist if they both work to maintain a balance. She decides that the promotion is an opportunity for her, but she doesn't want to sacrifice her relationship with Si-woo for it. Ha-kyung eventually agrees to the new promotion offer, but on the condition that she keep a clear separation between work and personal time. She decides to take a more structured approach to her schedule in order to maintain a balance between her career and her relationships. This step becomes important for her not only professionally but also personally. She learns to trust her decisions and to believe that she can manage her life in a way that brings her joy and fulfillment in all aspects of it. After Ha-kyung decided to accept a promotion and found a way to balance her career and personal life, her relationship with Si-woo has reached a new stage of maturity. Both characters are now confident in their feelings and ready to move forward despite any external challenges. The finale of the story summarizes their difficult but important road to mutual understanding and harmony. Her job at the weather service continues to be stressful, but Ha-kyung feels more confident in her new role. Her promotion allows her to realize her professional ambitions, and she handles her new responsibilities with the same determination. The management is satisfied with her performance, and this reinforces her reputation as a competent professional. Si-woo is also actively developing in his career. Now that his job has become more complex and demanding, he faces new challenges, but his support from Ha-kyung helps him overcome these difficulties. Both characters realize that professional growth is an important part of their lives, but now they have learned how to properly allocate time and effort to keep their personal relationships at the forefront. On the personal front, their relationship grows stronger and stronger. Si-woo and Ha-kyung are now no longer hiding their feelings from their colleagues and are now openly dating despite any gossip and rumors that continue to spread in the office. Both have learned to ignore the opinions of others focusing on their own priorities and happiness. This move shows their confidence in their decisions and maturity as a couple. Meanwhile, changes are taking place in Ki-jun and Chae-yu-jin's lives. Their marriage is facing serious problems, and both begin to realize that their relationship needs to be reevaluated. Chae-yu-jin decides that she needs to focus more on her career and personal independence. And Ki-jun finally realizes that his past with Ha-kyung shouldn't continue to affect his present. This moment closes an old chapter in Ha-kyung's life, and she realizes that she is no longer bound by the past. In the final scenes, Ha-kyung and Si-woo spend more time together outside of work, enjoying the simple pleasures of life. They realize that their relationship is stronger than ever despite all the trials. Both realize that love is not only passion and romance, but also a willingness to support each other in difficult moments, share responsibilities, and make difficult decisions together. They begin to make plans for a future where they can both continue to grow professionally and personally while staying together. This symbolizes their shared success. They have overcome all challenges and can now move forward with confidence in their abilities and feelings. The finale emphasizes that a real relationship is not just about love, but about constantly working on oneself and supporting each other. Ha-kyung and Si-woo have found the balance they dreamed of, and now a bright future full of new opportunities and happy moments awaits them.